A reading from 2 Maccabees chapter 5. About this time, Antiochus IV made a second attack against Egypt. For nearly 40 days, people all over Jerusalem saw visions of cavalry troops in gold armor charging across the sky. The riders were armed with spears, and their swords were drawn. They were lined up in battle against one another, attacking and counterattacking. Shields were clashing. There was a rain of spears, and arrows flew through the air. All the different kinds of armor and the gold bridles on the horses flashed in the sunlight. Everyone in the city prayed that these visions might be a good sign. When a false report began to spread that Antiochus had died, Jason took more than 1,000 men and suddenly attacked Jerusalem. They drove back those stationed on the city walls and finally captured the city. Menelaus fled for safety to the fort near the Temple Hill, while Jason and his men went on slaughtering their fellow Jews without mercy. Jason did not realize that success against one's own people is the worst kind of failure. He even considered his success a victory over enemies, rather than a defeat of his own people. But Jason did not take over the government. Instead, he was forced to flee once again to the territory of the Ammonites, and in the end his evil plot brought him nothing but shame and disgrace, and he died in misery. Aretas, the ruler of the Arabs, imprisoned him, and he was looked upon as a criminal and despised because he had betrayed his own people. Everyone was hunting for him, and he had to run from town to town. He fled to Egypt for safety, then to Greece, hoping to find refuge among the Spartans, who were related to the Jews. Finally, this man, who had forced so many others to flee from their own country, died as a fugitive in a foreign land. Jason had killed many people and left their bodies unburied, but now his own death was unmourned. He was not given a funeral or even buried with his ancestors. When the news of what had happened in Jerusalem reached Antiochus, he thought the whole country of Judea was in revolt, and he became as furious as a wild animal. So he left Egypt and took Jerusalem by storm, giving his men orders to cut down without mercy everyone they met and to slaughter anyone they found hiding in the houses. They murdered everyone, men and women, boys and girls, even babies were butchered. 3 days later, Jerusalem had lost 80,000 people, 40,000 killed in the attack, and at least that many taken away to be sold as slaves. But Antiochus was still not satisfied. He even dared to enter the holiest temple in all the world, guided by Menelaus, who had become a traitor both to his religion and to his people. With his filthy and unholy hands, Antiochus swept away the sacred objects of worship and the gifts which other kings had given to increase the glory and honor of the temple. He was so thrilled with his conquest that he did not realize that the Lord had let his holy temple be defiled because the sin of the people of Jerusalem had made him angry for a while. If the people of Jerusalem had not been involved in so many sins Antiochus would have been punished immediately and prevented from taking such a foolish action. He would have suffered the same fate as Heliodorus, who was sent by King Seleucus to inspect the treasury. But the Lord did not choose his people for the sake of his temple. He established his temple for the sake of his people. So the temple shared in the people's suffering, but also later shared in their prosperity. The Lord abandoned it when he became angry, but restored it when his anger had cooled down. Antiochus took 135,000 pounds of silver from the temple and hurried off to Antioch. Such was his arrogance that he felt he could make ships sail across dry land or troops march across the sea. He appointed governors to cause trouble for the people. In Jerusalem, he placed Philip, a man from Phrygia, who was more evil than Antiochus himself. At Mount Gerizim, he placed Andronicus. In addition to these, there was Menelaus, who mistreated his fellow Jews far worse than the governors did. Antiochus hated the Jews so much that he sent an army of 22,000 mercenary troops from Mysia to Jerusalem under the command of a man named Apollonius, with orders to kill every man in the city and to sell the women and boys as slaves. Apollonius arrived in Jerusalem pretending to be on a peace mission. Then, on a Sabbath, when all the Jews were observing the day of rest, he led his troops, who were fully armed, in a parade outside the city. Suddenly he commanded his men to kill everyone who had come out to see them. They rushed into the city and murdered a great many people. But Judas Maccabeus and about 9 others escaped into the barren mountains, where they lived like wild animals. In order not to defile themselves, they ate only plants which they found growing there. The word of the Lord.